I will quickly just say about the speak two things. One thing is that my teacher, Professor Ramshankar Tripathi, a well-known, Sanskrit scholar and also Pali scholar, he just explained. He was a good Sanskrit as a Pali scholar, because but for the last 1,000 years there was no Buddhism tradition lineage. So it was difficult him to, although the Sambhurana Sanskrit University has a course in Buddhism, Parmanavartikam. So he cannot make any sense many places. So what he did was, at that time many great Tibetan scholars were there. So he invited and just asked questions about those things. And then he could understand. And also the subject matter, everything. And slowly now he is a very eminent scholar in like Sanskrit Buddhism. So here it works is the translation, transmission. Although these great Sanskrit scholars who doesn't have a tradition or lineage, they cannot just read out these texts clearly. They cannot understand what is meant. Because the Samaya, if you use in Pramanavartika, then this Samaya means here Sanketa, not Samaya in other senses, or Samaya in what you have in Tantra. So these are the intricacies. If you doesn't have a transmission, then you cannot just have the meaning, although you might have some commentaries on that. Now second thing is there's one, some panelists have discussed that the Pallavi script, and then there are other sources that Pali is a lag, which as a language came, although it's a Indian middle indict, it's the Ardha Magadhi. So still in Jain scholars version, they have four main languages for the Sanskrit: Prakrit, Abhabhransha, and Pishachi were the main languages. And also in Tibetan, at the time, they have these four main. Nowhere there's a Pali. So now it is important that one monk, Sumet Kero, I asked him to please, as a Pali scholar, we have to make as a language. He just told me there's no script for Pali. So that's the problem in Sri Lanka facing. All the Pali, their script are in Pali, Sinhalese language. And then if it's like Myanmar, then a Burmese language script they use. So it is important to know whether Pali is a native thing, or some say it comes from Pampi. So these are the issues still. As a Pali or whether it's a Ardha Magadhi, they say. And then Professor from Sri Lanka, he says that the Sinhalese has a Prakrit in that case. And if Mahinda, he said how this middle Prakrit has a understanding of the transmission of the Pali canon in Sri Lanka. So these are also some salient features we have to make note on these things. You see, I think it's important issues.
I think I have to. You want
Excuse me. Yeah. I'm from Cambodia. I want to add some of my ideas to the audience. Yeah. For Cambodian tradition, Buddhism also branches from original from India. But we know that Cambodian from the 3rd century, Cambodian believe in Mahayana Buddhism. But in that case, even Cambodian follow Mahayana Buddhism. We have known that Cambodian follow until 13th century, and then 13th century Cambodian transformed from Mahayana to Theravada Buddhism until now. But for Pali learning in Cambodia, not so different from every country. But like Cambodian, they learn Pali from younghood. Like if we going to be to become a Samnera or Bhikkhu, we have to learn learn Pali from Samnera or become a Samnera. Like 13 years old or 10 years old, we have to learn Pali. Pali, the tradition of pronunciation is not so different, but according to the to the language of the country. Like Cambodian language is transformed from Pramit script. Yeah, we know that Pramit script is also, but Cambodian have their own language from 4th century BC. Right? Yeah, like that. The pronunciation is like Avijja Patiya, Sankhara Patiya, Vijnana Patiya. But we know that all the pronunciation of Cambodian language is, I think, a little bit different from other countries. But that the meaning of Cambodian pronunciation in Pali, they have translated to Cambodian language also. Translated to Cambodian language. But some people, some monks, they can recite it in Pali, but they understand the Khmer language also. So they can recite both, recite Pali or Cambodian, according to the monk who prefer to recite them. Yeah, that is it's my idea to add with. Yeah.
Okay, just again a general comment I have to make. So please try to. I think what we learned is that we have to do a lot of studies of the transmission, how it has been translated in different cultures and different regions. And somebody has to do a systematic and careful study of how it has been translated to Cambodia and so on. There must be many studies as well. So please also try to stick to our topic, transmission, cross-cultural transmission of Buddhist text. So first of all,
so in connection with what the Venerable Shastri Losam Shastri said, without really understanding the true concept or the content, subject matter, then the translation, however accurate you are in terms of the words, would miss a lot. So I'll give you a very solid example. In fact, I was involved with giving exams, or I was involved with conducting exams and preparing question papers. So when I set a question paper, I set it in such a way that under one main question, there are 4 or 5 sub-questions. Okay, so these 4 or 5 sub-questions, they are put up in such a way that you could easily understand from the answers given by the students in the written, right, whether they have really understood this concept. Because if you go to they answer one by one, they're all accurate, but then they couldn't see the link among the four lines or the 4 subsections, right? So from there, you could easily figure out the degree of understanding of the person. So from this written, okay. So from likewise, as one of the panelists mentioned, that all the words are so accurate and so forth, I'm not really so keen on that part as well. So keen in the sense, word could be very accurate, but it doesn't mean that the person is really understood, you know. So, and then imagine, say the paper, the answer sheet given by the person, the student who has not understood the links among the 4 subsections, then if this answer sheet is going to be learned by someone else in the future, that person maximum is going to get the answer to these 4, but not going to miss the holistic picture of the question, the answer sheet. Whereas if the answer given by the student in a holistic way, along with the individual questions, the answers given to the individual questions, then the future the students who are going to refer to that paper is going to get complete. So therefore, the translators, there are so many responses. Of course, I'd like to speak more on this tomorrow during the relativity session, but I'm not good. I don't know if I'm going to get enough time tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Professor Williman wanted to speak.
Just one thing. The subject is cultural transmission. I'll just introduce the notion of supply and demand. There is the Indian supply and the Chinese demand, or whatever. There is the Indian supply and the whatever demand, wherever. And this influences the transmission incredibly, and it makes it very practical. So when Jiva wanted to convert the Chinese to Prajnaparamita, to Nagarjuna Madhyamaka, the Chinese were not interested. They just wanted more meditation manuals and they wanted Vinaya, to organize the communities and to practice. That's what they wanted. So that's what they asked Kumarajiva, and that's what Kumarajiva probably reluctantly supplied. So there is the matter of supply and demand, saying that the Chinese sources are just not really practiced, not really, the practice tradition is partly true. Because sometimes Xuanzang is offered to China many things which the Chinese really were not interested in, like the Vaibhashika Abhidharma. This is if you have a Buddha Bhashita Abhidharma, which that means you're establishing an orthodoxy against, for more than one reason. So the Theravadins did that, the Sarvastivadins did that. They had their reasons, I'm sure. I could name a few, but this is not a subject today. But what the Chinese were interested in is not a Buddha Bhashita Abhidharma, but how to practice it and how to organize their community, Vinaya. This is an important element in the whole transmission. That's all I want to add.
I would like to make 3 points. Number one, what our esteemed colleague mentioned, that the transliteration of mantras, particularly Sanskrit, in Tibetan translation, mainly I would now mention, often gets lost, and sometimes maybe the power of the sound or vibrations, which is supposed to have the effect, is not really transmitted properly. But as it was also pointed out by Reverend Dorje Damdul, the fact is, in Tibetan tradition, it works. And number 2, we have the problem of that we cannot, unfortunately, have a standardization of Buddhist terms, because it always depends on the semantic field or context, and also the textual context or the cultural context. For instance, the term vidya is translated according to the, you can translate it in the philosophical way, or if it is a tantric context, again it is different. Or so one must be really precise, and where does that differentiation come in? It comes in through the oral tradition, through the oral transmission and the guidance of the guru. Now, for instance, the term alaya, kunchi in Tibetan, which in Yogacara is a very, in connection with Nambasheba, it's a very essential term. Now, if you transfer that, and the meaning in the Bön Tsokpa Chimpo Mahaati context, you're completely out of the way. Or in discussion with my colleagues who are Advaita Vedantists, to translate prajna, jnana, vidya again is completely different than in our Mahamudra or Doha context. So this is rather an important thing to take into the consideration. For instance, also the word to translate guru in the tantric context, the one who gives you diksha in Tibetan is lama, again has a Bön context, cultural context, and so on. Number 3, when we speak of cross-cultural transmissions, we should also take into account the performing arts. Performing arts, all these avadanas and jatakas in Tibetan tradition surviving in Durga or in Tamil or whatever, and so do they in the Chinese and Japanese traditions and whatever. So this is also an important way how to perform Buddhist texts or stories, narratives into dramatic arts in their respective cultural context.
Thank you. There's some other questions.
Can I just raise a lay person's? A lot of you are looking at
Please.
A lot of you are looking at this at a micro level, but at a macro level.
Please do.
I mean, one of the sort of, my knowledge is elementary things I know about, for instance, the transmission of Buddhism to China is people read things in a linguistic and cultural context and interpret to fit their culture, and gradually, the transmission changes and Chinese Buddhism takes on Chinese and Confucian concepts. And you've not been looking at it at that level. And that is part of transmission too.
Venerable one.
I wanted to point it out the Buddha's teaching from Samyutta Nikaya. And Jamiluke Buddha, 2 monks came to Buddha and asked to translate Buddha Vachana into Vedic and Chandaso Aropi. Then Buddha prohibited it and not to do. And Buddha advised to do it in the way of Sakaya Nirutti, one his own language, probably, as I understood. I think that translation and transmission, both there. I don't know how to apply in this project, in this context. These things are there for the discussion. I wanted to point it out.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to make a small remark to the Venerable's remark. In my address, I tried to mention in one sentence that one remarkable point that we have in the case of the transmission of Buddhism, particularly cross-cultural transmission of Buddhism, is indeed perhaps something to do with that statement that the Buddha has endorsed, so to say, or prohibited, or endorsed to transmit in their vernacular languages. In contrast, particularly Islam, for instance, I was told that actually preferably you should learn Arabic, the language of the Quran, in order to transmit. So you first learn the language and then you can understand. But this is completely in contrast to Buddhism, for instance. So Buddhism is okay, in whatever language. The main thing you understand what I'm trying to say. So I think this is very important. I would even think this is the starting point of this movement of transmission of Buddhism across Asia first and then to the rest of the world. I think this is a very important point. And also with the lady's remark, from my side I just wanted to mention that indeed we have this challenge. I mean, every one of you who have been dealing with the theories and practice of translation are well aware of the connotations and associations, the desirable and undesirable, positive and negative connotation that you would have in the target languages and the source languages. And one challenge, particularly, if I understood correctly, and you can correct me, particularly the sinologists, people dealing with Buddhist, Chinese Buddhist texts, they are well aware of the difficulties faced by the Chinese translators in translating Indian works and culture and ideas, concepts and so on into Chinese. Because Chinese has a long established civilization, kind of a highly developed civilization, and that made it more challenging. But not to be what I call debasing Tibetan, but Tibetan culture is often seen as a sort of tabula rasa. It made things in a way easier as compared to Chinese. But of course, like technical term like shunyata, like emptiness, or okay, sorry to use this problematic example. But just, I think literally it is correct, but you are expected not to understand simply by looking at the word shunyata. You have to see how it is understood, how it is explained, what it means. Just because you have a term and then this term has to be understood in a technical context or in a professional context, and only then you have this understanding. Because even a well-educated Tibetan who has no idea of Buddhism would not understand shunyata if you tell him. So this is true, I think, in any disciplines and any fields of text, any genre that we translate from one culture to another. So this is the point that one point I want to make. And
we have been talking of cross-cultural transmission and contextual aspect with reference to this Atta-Guru Dhamma, which is known as Whereas in Pali Vinaya, it is in a different context where they are making it as a legit thing to be followed by the bhikkhuni. So when we talk of the contextual aspect, in what way, because of late from the gender issue and all, we do quote, according to Pali Buddhism, they are not given the equal status for the bhikkhunis on par with the bhikkhus. But with reference to the Chinese thing where they follow this Dharmaguptaka Vinaya, there the context is completely different, where it has been used. How can we do justice for this when we talk of cross culture?
Just to answer, I'm sorry that I have